shifted uncomfortably in his suit. He rarely wore one these days, but he had figured it might increase the level of respect from the police officers. Behind the policeman, 2 officers were questioning several suspects, young men clad in dirty vests and shorts. Farther back toward a guarded entrance, police women were conducting general checkups on new arrivals. In slow motion, the policeman handed back the card to Bing. He spat out his toothpick and asked, "So, how do you know this woman, Luo Xiangzhu?" "We are neighbors," Bing said, trying to keep his composure. "She is a law-abiding citizen. Why has she been arrested, may I ask?" The policeman didn't answer, but stared at Bing, his eyes narrowing behind his glasses. A moment later, his face relaxed, and he said with a weary wave of his hand, "Okay, I'll take your word for it." He pressed an intercom and shouted, "Bring in Luo Xiangzhu!" Within a few minutes, Lotus, in a black outfit, appeared through the iron entrance, trailing behind a gray-uniformed man. She walked hunched over, her arms closely folded around her chest. When she saw Bing, her pretty face, the shape of a sunflower seed, flooded with relief. She glanced at the policeman, who was now smoking his cigarette. His face had switched back into casual indifference. Turning toward Bing, Lotus clasped her hands in front of her in a gesture of gratitude and bowed deeply. "Hu Lao Shi." That was all she managed to say. Biting her lip, she was clearly embarrassed. "Are you all right, Lotus?" "I'm okay," she said, as she pulled one side of her mouth into a smile. "Really." There were no apparent injuries, though she looked tired and pale. Her hair was confused, and her almond-shaped eyes were anxious. She looked pitiful, yet appealing as ever. Bing forced himself to focus on the policeman. "Can we, He cleared his throat. "Excuse me, officer. Can we leave now?" There was a long pause. Then the policeman flicked his cigarette butt into a bin and pushed the guarantor letter toward him. "Sign the paper first." Outside, the gray day looked sickly, the thick dough of dark clouds billowing and swelling in a low sky. A west wind was buffeting the earth. Apart from several ground rats, motorized rickshaws parked a safe distance away from the entrance of the detention center, there was little traffic and few people or houses in sight. Breathing the brisk air with Lotus freshly liberated by his side, Bing had a sense of elation he hadn't experienced in years. In some ways, he felt he was reliving a glorious moment in his youth. He cupped his hands to light a cigarette, took a drag, and let out a long plume of smoke. Lotus glanced up at the high-security wall laced with barbed wire and started to march toward the rickshaws without waiting for him, her hair flying in the wind. He followed her, puffing on his cigarette. "What did you say to them, Hu Lao Shi?" she asked, in a voice breathy with appreciation. "To convince them to let me go like this." Bing raised his chin and said, "Maybe they didn't want to mess around with a journalist." Slowing her pace, she said, "Thank Buddha that you came to rescue me. I wasn't sure you'd bother." "I regard you as a friend," Bing said, pushing up his glasses, but the term was a bit of a stretch. So far, his efforts to befriend Lotus had been met with subtle resistance. Lotus hugged herself against a gust of strong wind. Bing tossed his cigarette. It flashed in an arc.